Okay, well, thanks everyone for taking time to join us for this Zoom call. My name is Rocky Moretti. Moretti is spelled M-O-R-E-T-T-I, and I'm the Director of Policy and Research with TRIP. TRIP is a transportation nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. We're supported by a coalition of transportation organizations that look to us to be advocates of an efficient, safe, and well-maintained transportation system. And the way that we do that is by putting out reports at the state and national level, looking at the condition of our transportation system, its performance in terms of safety and traffic congestion, and its impact on the economy. Just as a quick note, the way that we're conducting this news conference is that if any reporters have a question for myself or Natalie English, you can indicate, I believe there's sort of a function on there that you can indicate that you would like to raise your hand so you have a question to ask, or you can use the chat feature. And then my colleague, Carolyn Kelly, who's on this call, will then moderate that. And if you have any questions, you will be elevated to the panelist status so that we can hear from you. And if you choose, we can also see you. Since TRIP as an organization is now in its 50th year of operation, we've done over 600 reports in that time. This report, North Carolina Transportation by the Numbers, is an analysis of the most recent data from federal and state sources on the condition and performance of the system and also its long-term funding needs. The report points out that North Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the country. From 2000 to 2019, we've seen a 37% increase in vehicle travel on North Carolina's roads and highways. That's the 5th highest rate in the country. Certainly, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, travel in North Carolina dropped significantly. It was 38% lower in April of 2020 than from the previous April. But by October, vehicle travel in North Carolina had returned to the point where it was only 4% lower than the previous year. We're seeing economic recovery. That's obviously very positive. We still have a ways to go, but I think we can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that has significant impacts for North Carolina's ability to move forward economically and to maintain its high quality of living. The North Carolina First Commission came out with a report earlier this year, a thorough report looking at the state's long-term transportation needs for highways, bridges, mass transit, and all of the transportation components that support mobility in the state, and found that the current level of investment, which is approximately $5 billion a year, needs to be increased by another $2 billion a year to allow North Carolina to provide a transportation system that's going to keep people safe, that's going to be efficient and reliable, which is going to allow economic growth, and also to maintain the state's aging system of roadways and bridges. The TRIP report found that motorists in North Carolina are paying a cost in driving on rough roads, lost time due to traffic congestion, and also the serious economic cost of serious and fatal traffic crashes. TRIP estimates that motorists are paying $10.3 billion a year in driving on rough roads, congested roads, and roads that lack adequate safety features. The TRIP report estimates that in the Wilmington area, the average motorist spends an additional $1,317 a year in the cost of operating vehicles on rough roads, in the cost of delays and wasted fuel due to traffic congestion, and the economic cost of serious and fatal traffic crashes in which the lack of adequate roadway safety features were a contributing factor. The TRIP report also looked at the latest data for the condition and the performance of the transportation system in Wilmington. The TRIP report finds that in the Wilmington area, 15% of major roads have pavements in poor condition and 26% are in mediocre condition. The TRIP report also found that 4% of Wilmington area bridges are structurally deficient and are bridges that are in need of immediate repair. The report also found that as travel in the Wilmington area returns to pre-pandemic levels, that the average commuter spends an additional 28 hours annually stuck in traffic due to traffic congestion and tie-ups in the area. The report also found that on average over the last 5 years, there have been 21 traffic fatalities annually in Wilmington. We know that when cost-effective roadway safety features are provided, simple solutions including rumble strips, adding turn lanes at intersections, improving facilities for bike and pedestrians, all of these improvements have a significant impact on keeping us safer. The challenge obviously is having the adequate resources to make that improvement. The report also points out that annually, $672 billion worth of goods are being shipped in the state, largely by trucks on the state's aging roads, highways, and bridges. And it's anticipated that the value, adjusted for inflation, of that freight moved in the state is going to approximately double over the next 25 years. And we've seen that during COVID, how absolutely vital the supply chain is to not only our day-to-day lives, but also the functioning of businesses in our communities. In fact, the report points out that as North Carolina looks to recovering economic growth in the state, that the investment in fixing and repairing its roads and bridges, making them more reliable and more safe, will also have a very positive impact on creating jobs in North Carolina. The state's current investment supports approximately 110,000 jobs in the construction area, the materials production, and a variety of sectors related to actually making the repairs that are needed. And most jobs in North Carolina, whether it be in tourism or manufacturing or retail, are very much tied to the quality of a region's transportation system. That's why a recent report last year from the North Carolina Chamber and North Carolina State University found that in locations that were within a mile of recent road improvements in terms of adding capacity or improving interchanges, were 3 times more likely to add additional jobs than businesses that were not close to where there had been a recent roadway improvement. So in conclusion, as we look at the recent findings of the NC First Commission of the need to raise additional funds for transportation in North Carolina, certainly one of those areas will be the federal government, which provides $1.1 billion a year for roads and mass transit in North Carolina, with a federal program that's expiring in September of this year. Clearly, the new Congress and the administration have indicated their support for additional transportation investment, and that will certainly be very helpful, as well as the ongoing need for additional state and local funding. With that, I'd like to welcome Natalie English. She's the president and CEO of the Wilmington Chamber to give a perspective from the Wilmington area on the trip report. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Rocky, and thank you for that detailed breakdown of the North Carolina Transportation by the Numbers report. It really speaks to the high cost of inadequate transportation infrastructure investments for the average North Carolinian. Again, as Rocky said, I am Natalie English, and I'm president and CEO of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. This report highlights the costs of inaction on the transportation front are growing with each passing year for North Carolina residents. Wilmington residents are paying far too much of these costs, more than $1,300 a year for the average motorist in our area. We also have a slightly higher percentage of roads in poor or mediocre condition than the statewide average. And as a community surrounded by bridges, our only way in and out, it is scary to me, the description of our bridge infrastructure in the region. As a region that is expected to double in population by 2050, and was most recently named the #1 location for in-migration, we must be considering ways we can expand our transportation infrastructure. It has become clear that old solutions like the motor fuels tax are quickly becoming insufficient to serve North Carolina's funding needs. What our state needs now is a more sustainable, more modernized approach to transportation funding. The COVID-19 pandemic has only made this more of an imperative. Right now, people across our region and our state are facing unprecedented hardships. Stronger investments in our transportation infrastructure will be key to our economic recovery. Adequate transportation investments will not only help the residents of the Wilmington region by bringing these transportation-related costs back under control, but they will also help our region and our entire state by growing jobs and creating greater economic opportunity in communities across North Carolina. At this pivotal moment, North Carolina's elected leaders have a unique opportunity to enact bold transportation solutions during the 2021 legislative session. The Wilmington Chamber of Commerce has been working with other organizations as part of a business-driven coalition aimed at encouraging our leaders to meet this opportunity head-on. We call ourselves the Destination 2030 Coalition. This alliance of businesses, trade associations, local chambers of commerce, other growth-minded organizations like ILM Airport was launched last year by the North Carolina Chamber, the state's leading advocate for the broad-based business community. The coalition's purpose is to give job creators a forum to share creative solutions to our transportation challenges and a focused voice to move those solutions forward at the public policy table. Since this past summer, I've represented my organization in conversations with other members of the Destination 2030 Coalition as we've discussed our state's transportation challenges. We've been hopeful that our efforts will help to fuel a broader awareness of the need to address these issues among the business community. And we've made substantial progress in this area as more than 100 organizations have now joined our coalition from multiple North Carolina industry sectors, and you can join as well. The members of the coalition have put a number of ideas out on the table to begin phasing out the motor fuels tax and create a more sustainable stream of transportation revenue. We've been using resources like the North Carolina First Commission's final report and the earlier report that Rocky mentioned that was released last year by the North Carolina Chamber Foundation to guide our discussions. Ideas like a more competitive highway use tax, a mileage-based user fee program, and reallocating some sales tax revenues for transportation purposes are all ideas that are on the table. The bottom line, however, is that we must act now to begin building a more sustainable transportation funding stream here in North Carolina, or we will see transportation-related costs, like those that are highlighted in this report, continue to pile up for the people of Wilmington and North Carolina. A survey done last year by the North Carolina First Commission found that residents across North Carolina ranked transportation as an issue equally as deserving of our leaders' attention as healthcare. However, residents in Eastern North Carolina ranked transportation even higher. Obviously, transportation is an issue of critical importance to the people in our area. Those of us on the Destination 2030 Coalition stand ready to assist our elected leaders in identifying and activating solutions that will help us secure a stronger transportation future here in North Carolina. And this is an opportunity we cannot afford to miss. With that, I'll turn things back over to Rocky and we'll move on to the Q&A portion of our event.
Thank you, Natalie. We'll give everyone a kind of a minute or two to, if you have any questions, to indicate that. Carolyn, do you see any questions at this point?
I don't see any yet, but as Rocky noted earlier, if you do have a question, you can either use the raise hand function or you can drop a note into the Q&A box and I'll be able to recognize you and elevate you to a presenter so you can ask your question live of Rocky and Natalie.
Natalie, it says in our report that one of the areas that is highly reliant on transportation is tourism, and I would assume that's probably true in the Wilmington area and maybe somewhat seasonal.
It is seasonal, and we certainly do see an uptick in traffic as the summer season approaches and throughout the summer season. We've got some great projects on the drawing board that will allow residents and tourists to get along on the roads a little bit better. But those projects aren't fully funded yet, and so we can't break ground on them as soon as we'd like to see.
Certainly.
I don't see any questions come in, so I think, Rocky, we can wrap things up.
Okay. Well, thanks again to Natalie for taking some time out of your day to give us some comments on the trip report, and for journalists who are participating. I'm available throughout the rest of the afternoon. My contact information is available in all of our media material, and happy to do any subsequent interviews if you have any follow-up questions. Again, thanks everyone, and we hope to talk to you again sometime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky.